I want to respect everybody according to the dignity that God has given me, from the bishops to the rectors and to the rest of us. When Father Nzukwen met me for this presentation, I was very, very happy, because I said he will give me the opportunity to know those who have succeeded us as rectors. I was rector during the period when Father Bishop Onaikan, Cardinal Onaikan and Msgnr Aniabu were in Ibadan, when Father Peter Damian Abunonu was in Bigad, and when Monsignor Theophilus Okere was in Owerri. I have forgotten those who are in St. Joseph Ikwotekwene and those who were here at Takwa, and I have missed. I know that Onyocha was somewhere, and we just met recently, that's why I remember. So it was for me an opportunity to come and meet those who are keeping the flag flying. And I want to tell you how happy I am to see that you have kept the faith. I pray that God will continue to help you, so that you will hand over successfully also to those who are coming behind. Honestly, there is something that I wouldn't like to miss even before I start this thing, because if we are here with the mindset that we are right and the Muslims are wrong, then we are in the wrong place. I attended a meeting, I think with Okere and the rest, in Rome. Portare Cristo al Mondo was carrying Christ to the world. And I remember very, very vividly that one of us from the East put up his hand and told them that our case in Nigeria is very different. The thing is that we cannot have dialogue in Nigeria. The Muslims cannot listen, that they only understand monologue. Then somebody, one old man, he got up and adjusted his glasses and said, "Where is the man from Nigeria?" I'm very sorry to tell you that I have been in Nigeria from 1945 up to he left Nigeria 2 years before we went for this meeting. And he said the problem with Nigeria is that the Christians are no better than the Muslims, and that we are playing a ping pong in this country. And I found that, you know, Christians, we have one self-righteous attitude. We came up at one time and we are criticizing Muslims. Why are they spending taxpayers' money in going to pilgrimage and so on and so forth? This thing is not good. Government should remove its hands from all these things. It should not. They came and gave Christians, Christian Pilgrims Board. We are in a cooler. Nobody is saying anything. Is it no longer the taxpayers' money? So it was, you gave these people, give to us also. Where is the difference that we have? Fathers, we are talking here about the way, the Christian way. I'm sure that some people are going to think that I'm going to tell you that you should carry machetes and tell the people that we should go and fight. You are not going to hear that one from Monsignor Gotan. I am wise. Because even now, if I say something and it is unpopular, the bishops are going to say he is on his own. He is not the voice of the church. So everybody is on his own. And you know, let me tell rectors, you people, you succeed in training seminarians. You didn't train priests. When they become priests, they become whatever they want to be. And you see a lot of embarrassment. You know, when you look at these priests, when they come out, you discover that they are completely different from what it is that is in the Catholic Church. We were talking with the rector of our minor seminary, and I was telling them, you know, in the eyes of the church, the position of a rector of a minor seminary is very, very important in the church. But go and put a priest to be a rector of the seminary, and he will begin with the Psalms of Lamentation. You know, not because of the work he's supposed to do, but because of money. Do you know what your priests are dabbling in now in the name of Catholic priests? These ones that we train from this particular place, I am telling you that in the world they are completely different things. I say I've seen a priest who changed Holy Week ceremonies because of watching a football match. Is that what you taught them? I have seen priests who went on and they are anointing women's private parts. Where did they get that one from? I have seen priests, after all these years that we do in the seminary, going to copy Ajiboye, all these Pentecostal priests. Why? Because they are looking for money. When you are talking about all these things, honestly, that is where you are going to see these things. This is time for us for repentance. It is time for us to look at ourselves to see where we have gone wrong, because we have definitely gone wrong. I had the occasion of telling them, Christians, about Maiduguri. Maiduguri was a virgin land. God gave it to us, Christians, to go and take care of that. We went to that particular place and we were busy fighting Catholics, Anglicans, and Pentecostals now. What are we fighting for? It's not about being religious. So even now when we are talking about that, Pentecostals are a threat to us. They are not a threat to me. You are the ones who are copying them because you discover that if our people leave our church and go to other churches, why are they leaving? You are not giving them what you are supposed to give them. I felt very at home. I do benediction in my church, but yesterday the benediction was quite different. I felt something very, very different, that I was here to hear, surrounded by beautiful songs and so on and so forth. Is that what we are looking for? Send fathers to the parishes and all those things. The first things that will be casualties are things like benediction, because the father now thinks that that kind of thing is archaic and it is no longer something. Then we are busy praying. Like here in Nigeria, honestly, God should be tired. Yes, God should be very, very tired because of what we are doing. Even in the face of this problem that we are, I read something and I say, here we go again. We will never put our heads together. Something must bring us to divide. Look, me here, I'm not the Hausa man, and if you call me a Hausa man, you are abusing me. But you know, our brothers in the south, all of us are from that particular place, so there's no difference about us. And even if you see me as a priest, you say, Onye Hausa. You don't even know whether I can say mass. So I got very angry sometimes in Rome when somebody saw me after I finished mass. They say, are you Igbo? I said, fortunately, no. Yeah, not that he will feel offended that I abuse, but I didn't. Why must I be an Igbo man before I'll be able to say mass? You know, we don't respect each other. You know, look, the work you are doing here is beautiful. The work that I'm doing there also is beautiful. So what we should do is encourage each other. That was why we were the ones who conceived of the seminary games and so on and so forth, which are going into problems now because we are going back again to how the world is. Are you aware that instead of us evangelizing the world now, it is the world that is evangelizing us? So can you see what that old man said? That we are not different from the other people. The people we are supposed to evangelize, these are the ones that are evangelizing us. Honestly, go and see, even about, with all due respect, rectors. Yesterday, I'm telling you, and I'm repeating it because you won't meet me to beat me. By the time that you meet me, I'm gone. There is meeting, and then there is this club, this thing. Then you left your seminarians to come here for serious thing. Then you go and sit down that they are playing football. What are our priorities? So we have a very serious problem, and I want you people, when you go back, you should take it. There is no doubt about it that our world is being subjected to horrific images of religious violence. When you look at it, you will see that the Islamic State in Iraq and Syria, ISIS, is recording its beheadings. The Al-Shabaab militia in Somalia are busy attacking shop malls in Nairobi, and Malmo in Sweden is now the Islamic rape capital in Europe. Perhaps even more notorious than ISIS and the Al-Shabaab is the Boko Haram, the radical militia that abducted hundreds of young girls, many of them Christians, in Nigeria in April 2014. Despite the Bring Back Our Girls campaign, many were sold as sex slaves or otherwise abused. And as if this is not enough, more recently Boko Haram has been upstaged by the violent tribe called of nomadic Muslim headsmen, the Fulani, whose attacks in the last 3 months of 2016 and continuing till today have resulted in the deaths of hundreds of Christians. These barbaric acts can make us feel helpless, fearful, angry, and even guilty. And I think it is guilty, because there seems to be little that we can do to stop them. You know, it is hard to distinguish between Islam, which is supposed to be the whole system of beliefs and the way of life of 1.3 billion Muslims, Islamism, which is in the Islamic fundamentalism, sometimes called revivalist, sometimes radical, sometimes activist or political Islam, and Islamic terrorism, who are terrorists, which is terrorism carried out by Muslims in the name of Islam. As a result of the failure to make these distinctions, many suggest, for example, that terrorism carried out by Muslims is a natural expression of Islamic beliefs. Even Prof here has said something about it. Fathers, I won't bore you. You know what Islam is. You know what the Islamic fundamentality is. I have described it there. For me, for this paper, the term Islamic fundamentalism and extremism will be considered synonymous, like two sides of the same coin. The Muslims are now saying they are not part of them, but I am saying that they are part of them. It is the other side of Islam. Now, when we are talking about the Islamic groups, we may not talk of a homogeneous Islamic fundamentalist group. There are some groups which are moderate and non-violent, and they acquiesce in the socio-political status quo of their countries. And these groups, we have their names there. Then there are others who are behaving in different names, as you can see on page 3 of my notes. Perhaps more important to us are the principles of Islamic fundamentalists. The Islamic fundamentalists are self-opinionated, and for this reason, they avoid dialogue, which Prof is telling us to do. And they are avoiding it so that their concepts will not be influenced. They consider themselves as reformists. Fathers, hear it, reformists, and they believe that the societal problems that we have in Nigeria today emanate from secular abuses. They maintain that Islamic traditionalists and the liberals are not true Muslims, as Prof has said, and they take them also as apostates. Their agitation is to have an Islamic state where Sharia, where the Hadith and the Sunnah will be fully operated with no respect for human rights. They have no regards for freedom of religion, no regards for gender equality, freedom of speech and freedom of association. And to exist for them, as far as they are concerned, one must belong to them. They affirm that the concept of proselytism and harsh penalties for their enemies because of them, Quran is inerrant and must be accepted as the only moral code of conduct for religious and political practices. So fathers, can you see that they themselves, just as we are seeing that they are the ones who are spoiling Nigeria, they believe that you and I are the spoilers of Nigeria, and therefore that they should get rid of us in any way that they can. In their true doctrine, a true Muslim must be willing to kill or get killed to rid the society of paganism. And their holiness is in the ability to take blood in serving Allah. They profess an authoritarian Islam in which humanity must be coerced to accept all the traditions of the Prophet Muhammad. And they believe that Islam must will absolute power that will make it superior to the state. In other words, the state must be placed under Islamic government, which is a government of Sharia and Hadith. How I wish that we, the Christians, also, that was the kind of stance that we take. But fathers, it is not. We have made a lot of faults, and we have shown that that is not our priority. Look, when they are talking about certain things, I look at them and I just wonder. I don't care if the Muslim, you see, our country has divided the country into Hausa, Igbo, and Yoruba. The Hausas believe that they have the politics of this country. They believe that the Igbos have the economy of the country, and that the Yorubas have the administration of this country. So that each person should hold on to his own very, very well. And you know that when all of you begin to do like that, I have my theory about it with all due respect. Me, I am a minority. I don't belong to the Hausa group. Since the 3 tribes, and each of them, you know, they are hanging on to ancestors in some other places. So I'm saying that the Hausa, whether they are Hausa or Fulani Hausa, the Igbos and the Yorubas, they should pay taxes to us who don't have any other place but Nigeria to belong to, because we are the indigenous of Nigeria. You see, they are getting us into a lot of problems, and they are the ones who are making the things not to move. Okay, you come, look at the education sector. It is the easiest place where you are going to get. Can you see what the missionaries did? Those people did wonders for Nigeria. Now that they have gone, we are doing the opposite of wonders for Nigeria. Do you know that none of the decisions that are ever taken are done without Christians in that particular place? But Christians are there. When they are there, I am told that when they go to whether it is Senate or whatever they have in that particular place, if you have something that you are very interested in, you will go around and bribe all the others, so that when it is being discussed, you will look or listen to another direction. Then they take a decision. Now it comes up, and then we say, how did we arrive there? We arrived there because we are selfish. I was telling some people with whom I was sitting, I went to the Open University the other day to see the rector in connection with external examination. I was called to examine President Obasanjo because he did a thesis in theology. Yes. So I was called, and I went to see the VC. And the VC called me and told me that my elder brother, the cardinal, was there. And that the cardinal was telling him that they want land. And that they showed him a land. But that he said, could the university build them something there? And he said, no, that's not how they are doing it. Do you know that that is how we, all of us, when we look at it, we see that they build mosques in places, and we think that it is government that built the place for them. He told me, Father, we gave somebody contract. He did the contract. He built a house for his own. Then he built a mosque and told God, God, here is my own. This one is your own. Do Christians not receive contracts, contracts? Particularly those of you in the East here, you are happy because your own people know. But up there in that particular place, always the contracts are being given to other people, not to our own who are going to be in a position to build that kind of a place. You know, at one time as a priest, I prayed that Abacha should come back so that I will apologize to him. There's no bad way the word I didn't call that man. Because of what I thought, I say he was a selfish bigot. Somebody, you see, that is why sometimes we should be quiet about certain things till you know the full truth. Jerry Husseini came and told us, what happened? They gave the Muslims an amount of money, they gave the Christians an amount of money. You know that before, we work under 3 Catholic, Protestant, and the Muslims. The non-Catholics went and they rebelled. Why should the Catholic Church alone be given? So they made us all Christians. They gave the money. And what did they do during Mbang's time? They shared the money among themselves to go and net in more money. And all those who collected the money, nobody brought any. Instead, all of them lost. And Abacha went and gave them more money to go and build that ecumenical center. He said, if there is anybody who was going to contest what he was saying, let them contest it before him. I saw our leaders just putting their faces on the ground. So it wasn't their fault. They gave us the money and we didn't know how to do the money, how to use the money. But fathers, even we Christians, we cannot coexist in the same place. I was telling Father, when Abu Nonu was in Bigat, there was a directive from government that they were not going to honor offshore universities. And we are touched. You know, our seminaries are affiliated to Urbaniana, and that is offshore. It is not because of us. You know that our education is very, very solid. But there are some mushroom Christian churches that go and they will just go there to Baghdad and bring somebody to that particular place to do this thing for them. So right now, we are back to square one. And the people who were there who would have spoken for us, nobody is there again. Our people were there, they said nothing. So right now, what they have is that anybody who graduates in affiliation with any offshore university, that they will consider that only for pastorally. You won't know what it means. Recently, how I got to know this is one of our priests is in a secular university. It came to his promotion. Then some other people knew that he didn't participate in NYSC. So they went and petitioned. They asked him, where is your NYSC certificate? He had to go there. Now he was caught by that thing, that no, he is not supposed to have participated in it. Thank God Father Nzukwen is telling me that they are going to pick it, because I told Father that it was not a matter he should take in isolation, but a matter that the bishops should face for us, and they are going to take it. So my dear fathers, Islamic fundamentalists believe that the actual solution to the societal decadence is to adhere to the principles of Islam. And I don't bother them, I don't bug them. I mean, if you want the whole world to be Catholic, work for it. They want the world to be Muslim. They are working for it. Why are you angry with them working for it? They are not out to kill you, but they believe that you are part of the ones who are spoiling this country. It is because of our connection with Western education, that is why we are being killed. And so when they see you doing something, they believe instead that they are doing something good for God. The spread of radical Islam is there. It is very interesting to look at it. And I am aware that somebody is following me who is going to do this thing. Fathers, because of this problem, so many of us have suffered. And I always want, when I have this opportunity, to explain. We see some Igbos who are in the north, they believe that they don't like them because of their religion. Far be it. Anywhere where you are, if you are a businessman, it doesn't matter what your tribe is. When there is problem, the first target that they have is to be able to dispossess people of their property. And that is why very often it seems like this is whatever it is. And at the beginning, when they come, the Igbos will fly and run away. But today, they have said, no, this is where we are, and we are going to stay in this place so that we will guard our distance. It has made a remarkable change in whatever it is. Before they thought that it is because they are Igbos, that is why they are. No, it is not. Even any northerner who has any big venture, when something like that happens, that is their target. They want to get these things. But you know, we should never forget that Christianity and Islam in Nigeria, they have always been on each other's throat. And their relationship is predicated on mistrust, malice, suspicion, and hatred. However, both religions have been able to manage the dissatisfaction until this Msgnr riot in Kano in December 1980. The riot was an intra-Muslim crisis championed by the Msgnr fundamentalists to purify Islam from idolatry and syncretism. But the Msgnr riot had no sooner subsided than the usual thing that happens. There was a road riot of Muslim Student Society in Nigeria. It began in 1985, also in Kano. And the riot was about a Muslim's protest against the building of St. George's Anglican Church. But St. George's the Anglican Church was said to, they said it was too close to their mosque in Kano. But the fact is that the old St. George's Church was built in 1970. So by that time, in 1930, where the mosque in question was built in 1970. So the fundamentalist Muslim youth put the church to sword, and 564 Christians lost their lives that day. The Christians in Kano experienced another gruesome persecution due to Reinhard Bonnke's revival activities in October 1991. The Muslim fundamentalists, suspecting that Reinhard would convert Muslims to Christianity like he had done in some other places, they mobilized at the Emir's palace in Kano, from where they spread out to the entire town in search of Christians, and within 4 days, over 500 people had been massacred. Many Christians were displaced to army barracks and police stations. In December 29, 1994, witnessed another bloodshed in Kano. This began with one Mrs. Akaluka, who was accused of using Quran's pages as toilet paper in a public toilet in Kano market. Gideon Akaluka, her husband, and a Christian too, was beheaded for defending his wife, and his head was thrust into a pole and was carried around the city of Kano in pomp and pageantry. However, the Emir of Kano condemned the dastardly act, but the condemnation did not go down well with the Muslim extremists, who immediately took to the streets and started killing Christians, and after 1 week, over 300 Christians were sent to their untimely grave. Fathers, there are many. They are there up to page 7. Perhaps what we want to know is something about the evolution, the development, and the philosophy of Boko Haram. I have that for you on beginning from page 8. The exact date of the emergence of Boko Haram sect is shrouded in controversy. However, according to the Nigerian Director of Defense Information, Colonel Mohammed Yerima, the sect has existed since 1995 under the name of Al-Sunnah wal Jama'ah Hijra, and it was then led by one Abubakar Lawal, who later left the country for studies at the University of Medina in Saudi Arabia. Malan Lawal surrendered the leadership of the group to the late Mustafa Modu John, popularly known as Mohammed Yusuf, an ardent disciple of Sheikh Gumi. It was under Yusuf's leadership that the group acquired enormous influence and popularity, if not notoriety. Today, the name Muhammad Yusuf has become the rallying name for members of the sect, as he was said to have laid the foundation of the growth of the organization. Fathers, if you look at it, page 8, page 9, it tells you all that they can. The group believes that Nigeria is deeply morally and spiritually bankrupt as a result of imbibing Western civilization, and thus the dire need for its purification through jihad, with the sole aim to Islamize Nigeria and ensure the rule of the majority Muslims in the country. Since most Christians were Western civilization friendly or compliant, Christianity is therefore considered to be synonymous with Western civilization and becomes the target of hatred and attack by the Islamic fundamentalists. According to them, the Nigerian state and Christians are our enemies, and we will be launching attacks on the Nigerian state and its security apparatus, as well as churches, until we achieve our goal of establishing an Islamic state in place of the secular state. Despite all our churches, they say it is a secular state. True to the above position, Boko Haram has been launching ceaseless attacks on churches, schools, police, and government buildings. The record of Boko Haram destruction as at 2016 in Borno State alone include the following: 20,000 people killed, 956,000 private houses burnt down, 5,335 primary school classrooms, 38 secondary schools and 2 tertiary institutions destroyed, 1,200 municipal, local government or ministry buildings, 76 police stations. All these ones were centers, among others, which were blown down. The spread of the bomb blasts targeted at Christians in northern Nigeria by Islamic fundamentalists is unprecedented. These bomb attacks are normally carried out by suicide bombers, and they do feature during Christian worships in church on Sundays or festive seasons like Christmas. You know that about the famous one in Madala near Abuja. It is there for you to see on page 10. Then on our own, the church has taken certain steps against terrorism. This is what is put down for us on page 10 and 11. Then I come, I don't know, your own pages may be different. Now, conclusion. The Islamic fundamentalists pose a great challenge not only to Christian witness, but also to Christian-Muslim coexistence in Nigeria, as in many parts of the world where there are large and growing numbers of Muslims. In Nigeria, the case of Abubakar Shekau of Boko Haram could be compared to Adolf Hitler of Nazism, who launched Operation Final Solution on the Jewish nation. This operation saw the extermination of 6 million Jews, including the blacks, Jehovah's Witnesses, Gypsies, the disabled and others he considered racially inferior, as they were taken to various death camps scattered across Poland, Austria and Germany for slaughter. In the end, the Allied forces closed in on him in his Berlin bunker, where he committed suicide in May 23, 1945. This means that evil cannot continue to prevail over good, and that those who perpetuate atrocities and criminalities will never end well. The case of Shekau bears the same similitude of Hitler. Just as Hitler had no reason for the bloodletting that rocked Europe, so Shekau has no reason for his genocide against humanity. In the long run, No matter how painful the gruesome activities of Shokau, his war against humanity will fail. Now that this work has shown how the Christians in Nigeria are threatened by serious activities of Islamic fundamentalist terrorists, what is the way forward? Should Christians turn the other cheek or confront terrorism by countering violence with violence? This is a difficult question to answer. In fact, somebody was very angry, and in the church he asked me, "Father, Jesus said, offer the right. If you offer the right and they give you give the left again and they slap, what do you do?" So I asked him, he was asking the wrong person, because I was not one of the consultants of Jesus to tell him what he said. Jesus told us this, all of us, and we heard about it. And the best thing to do is not to be asking those questions, but to ask ourselves if we are following what Jesus tells us. Fathers, I believe that, sometimes when we try certain things and we see that they are not working, we go our way. But just try it. Speed up and hold your eye there. It will fall back on you. Very often, this love that Jesus says we should show when we are in the face of threat, when you do it, you will discover that you are going to win better than what we are doing. When we take the first action, it would encourage more violence. Perhaps because in the eyes of the enemy, you are a weakling left to the mercy of the tormentors. The second option might be counterproductive, as the victims may become guilty of the very evil that they are presumably fighting. Fighting violence with violence for Christians who are supposed to be the peacemakers, and the church, which should not be seen to promote violence, may not be the right way to deal with the issue. In seeking any way forward, however, fathers, we must realize, first, that as Christians, we are not called at all times to be subjected to ungodly treatment or to evade such treatment. Ultimately, God himself will at times defend his church. But in the same way, there are times when God will lead his people to rise in holy indignation and resist efforts to crush his people. Christians have the right to be angry about situations of persecution with a holy indignation and a righteous outrage, which leads to attempts to transform such conditions. Such transformations could occur through legislative change, civil disobedience, publications, and public demonstrations. However, Christian resistance to religious persecution must not distort, diminish, or contradict the gospel, God's purposes in persecution, and Christ's mission in the world. Definitely, there are times when it is appropriate to fight for one's legal rights. Jesus defended himself at one point during his trial. Read John chapter 18, verse 23. Paul demonstrated resistance by appealing to the Roman law. Look at Acts of the Apostles. With his knowledge of the law and his own rights as a citizen of the Roman Empire, Paul was able to avoid persecution by resisting it. Secondly, where the church is exposed to a high degree of persecution, it is also often wise to withdraw without compromising the witness to Christ. Jesus himself at times went into hiding because his time had not yet come. When Jesus sent out his disciples on a training mission and his instructions expanded to events in the future, he told them when they are persecuted in one town, they should withdraw to the next in order that the gospel may continue to spread. Matthew chapter 10, verse 23. The Jerusalem church, in fact, later implemented such withdrawal, as you can see in Acts chapter 8, verse 1. This is also a pattern in the missionary work of Paul in Acts. While God's work can go on forcefully through the testimony of martyrdom, it is sometimes better that people remain alive in order to proclaim it. Thirdly, there are also times that avoiding persecution is impossible, impractical, and inappropriate. At this point, one must stand firm and remain faithful even unto death. St. Stephen in the Acts of the Apostles chapter 7 is our mentor. The Jewish leaders were infuriated by Stephen's accusation, and they shook their fists at him in rage. But Stephen, full of the Holy Spirit, gazed steadily into heaven and saw the glory of God. And he saw Jesus standing in the place of honor at God's right hand. And he told them, "Look, I see the heavens open and the Son of Man standing in the place of honor at God's right hand." Then they put their hands over their ears and began shouting. They rushed at him and dragged him out of the city and began to stone him. His accusers took off their coats and laid them at the feet of a young man named Saul. As they stoned him, Stephen prayed, "Lord Jesus, receive my spirit." He fell to his knees, shouting, "Lord, don't charge them with this sin." And with that, he died. Fathers, the task of this paper has been to whet your appetite of this august body of intellectuals and invite you to brainstorm on such way forward. I, however, gave some recommendations, 5 at the first instance, but I'm very interested in that. The first 5 are there according to the mind of the church. They are talking about witnessing by forgiveness, witnessing by tolerance, and so on and so forth. These are the usual ones that you know. But the serious one for me is what follows on page 14. This is where I can understand when some people can say, is it not Gotan who said this? Now if you look at it, there is a reverse gear in these orders. Particularly on the last page, I said Christians must sacrifice their denominational, ethnic, or individual ambitions and unify to bridge our divisions as greater sacrifice in the painful struggle to survive, to defend and strengthen ourselves as Christ did for us by his suffering and lying of Christianity. Yes, fathers, we must participate where there is can. Even for those of us that can is usually relevant, I can see that the absence of priests, if we are not there, the others will take the place. And for the others, they have made very uncomplimentary remarks about us Catholic priests, that we were in societies only because we want to be leaders. If others are leaders, we don't want to follow. And I think if that is true, it is not correct, and we should participate. I said CAN has demonstrated that it is a force to be reckoned with as a power of unity among Christians. And they have mitigated the effects of terrorism in the country. I said CAN should also start a unit of intelligence gathering as a preemptive measure to terrorist attacks against Christians. Christians should identify the obstacles or hurdles to our freedom and right to life in the current democratic structures in the country, and reasonably encourage the participation of our adherents in political activities to fight for the removal of obstacles that encourage and promote the infringement of our freedom and right in the current democratic structures. Fathers, honestly, for us priests, we must be very careful, particularly as far as politics is concerned. If we are not careful, we can be drawn into it. I know we are supposed to be in the front of pushing the people to go in, like what we are saying in the church today. It seems as if the Catholic Church is not prepared to come out. Yes, I won't come out and show that I belong to APC or PDP or whatever. But we must identify some of our people who will take leadership position and be with these people wherever they are. Definitely they are wrong in what they are doing. But you know, some of these things when you ask, you discover. Like when I asked one Christian minister, I say, you people are there, and you are seeing what Buhari is doing, and you are not correcting him. He asked me to tell him, I say, in the appointment of ministers, he said, Father, this is where you people get it wrong. That the Constitution approves that they are going to give ministries according to whether it is local government areas or states. That is where we got it wrong. When they were busy factionalizing, in some places, just within 2 miles, you find a local government. Whereas in my village, we are the same tribe. They just divided it into 2 for administrative convenience. My tribe, who are this way, are competing with the ones in that particular area. So if you come and divide more, you are just creating more trouble. We need to sensitize our people to what is happening, particularly our tribes. Fathers, our work is quite different. Our own is spiritual. I say very often what we refer to as spiritual here in Nigeria is not spiritual. People are fighting, for example, because they are marginalized. How can we come and sit down now? Look at God's creation. He put some of us to be farmers and some of us to be herders. Then the herders and the farmers are very busy provoking each other instead of us looking at the best practice in the world so that we will see how we can stay together. Are we telling God that he should kill the others and then we alone can remain, or kill us so that they will remain? A typical example is Jos, where I am. We have 3 tribes in that particular place. And these 3 tribes, they are fighting about who owns the land. Now the Muslims come to that particular place and they get it on a platter of gold. They went for election, and these 3 tribes, and unfortunately those in that Jos area, they are Christians. They went for elections. 3 from these 3 tribes stood for election. The Hausas, some of them left the place and one person emerged, and that person got it. At the end of it, then they came and they were telling me they don't like Christians. I said, stop that rubbish. It is your tribalism that is causing us trouble, not Christianity. Christianity says we should love ourselves. Christianity tells us that we will fight, we will quarrel, we will have misunderstanding. But we must sit down and see how we will forgive each other. That is the easiest way, because if these 3 tribes agree that they are going to be, the Muslims are not going to be any force to them. And I'm telling you, any day, if we continue with this division among our tribes, if you like, call it not Christianity, anything else, we are not going to win. So please, let us try to control what we say and know what our own role is. Me and you, our own is divine. Let us not enter into some of our tribal but this, yes, you will sympathize with them, but the best sympathy that you do for them is speak for them in the way that is right. Thanking you for allowing me to inflict my ideas on you. Thank you very much.